Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at the 2025 Specialized Sirrus X 2.0. The Sirrus X has more or less taken over the entire fitness and dual sport category for Specialized, and we're going to talk about why that is, a little story behind it, and then of course, we'll find out exactly what it weighs. And to begin the discussion about the Sirrus X, I want to take a little bit of a history lesson on Specialized Sirrus. Now, the Sirrus model from Specialized actually began its life as a road bike, morphed into a flat bar road bike, then morphed into what we traditionally call a fitness or commuter bike, where it's really oriented around the speed of a road bike, but the positioning and the durability of a mountain bike, to now this model, the Sirrus X. Now, along that way, Specialized was making a Sirrus and a Sirrus X. And the magic between the two was really a standpoint around where they expected the bike to be. Now, the Sirrus X's all came with this little bit wider tire, which was a derivative of their prior dual sport style hybrid, the Cross Trail. And the Cross Trail itself had suspension in the front end of the bike, these kind of fatter tires that we have here, but even back then they were only 38 millimeter wide tires, whereas the Sirrus X removed the front suspension and added in a wider 42 millimeter tire. Now, by going to these fatter, wider 42 millimeter tires, that means that the tire height gets taller, because height is a function of width. So as you say increase the width of the tire, the height gets taller as well. And a taller height plus a little more width means more cush available from the tire and no need for a suspension fork. Now, this is all well and good, but in a world where there were just simply too many bikes to choose from, and a world where people value a bit more versatility out of their bike than simply just speed, the Sirrus X has really taken over Specialized lineup. So much so that in 2025, there's only one Sirrus left available. It's the Sirrus 6.0, a carbon fiber, super lightweight, flat bar road bike that, well, if we remember the history from the beginning, is, well, really similar to how the bike all started. So, interesting story nonetheless, but what is this bike for? And the simple answer is, it's the bike that you'd choose if you could only choose just one bike. Say you got up one morning and decided that it was time to find a bike to get riding. You don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do, or maybe you have in your mind that you're going to be, say, taking the bike on some camping trips, going out on some bike rides with family, possibly taking it into work occasionally, and, well, you want to lose a couple of pounds as well. What bike on the market can do all of that? Well, that right here is the Sirrus X. So anyways, in the Sirrus X lineup, we're talking those wide 42 millimeter tires. They don't spec a maximum tire size, but most people have found about 45 millimeters is as wide as you can go. The 2.0 is going to be on the lower side of the spectrum. They're going to start with 1.0s, go all the way up to the 5.0, and this bike comes in with a price point of $775. Now, another place that this is a bit different than what the prior generation Sirruses were is this is going to be a one-by style drivetrain. Now, what that means is on the right-hand side, you're going to have your shifter for the rear gears of the bike. And many of us would have been used to having shifting on the front of the bike as well, which would relegate you to having another shifter on the left-hand side, but you'll see that's missing. And that's because through the 8 speeds of this micro shift advent Acolyte rear derailleur, you're going to have enough range for all those different scenarios we were talking about before. Now, the range that we're got on this bike is a 12 to 42 tooth rear cassette, giving a pretty wide range, and it goes through this 1x crankset up front, which is mounted to the bike via threaded bottom bracket. All that really means is that this is super simple and super reliable. Threaded bottom bracket really has no problems. Out back, that 8-speed drivetrain is going to be really robust and simple. And then the Acolyte rear derailleur from Microshift, pretty neat because it's got a clutch mechanism on here to help keep everything quiet, so the chain's not going to bounce around too much. Really simple, really low maintenance, just, well, a bike for you to enjoy. And then you've got your Pathfinder Sport tires, which are going to be a flat resistant tire with a smooth center line to be able to roll a bit faster, little bit of this file tread and shoulder knobs on the tire, which means that if you get on a little bit of sand on the side of the road, or also some light trail use, the tire is going to be more than capable, mounted up on this alloy wheel with stainless steel spokes. And up front, because the whole cockpit is just so much more simple with less cabling, makes for a nice look. It does have internal cable routing through the down tube of the bike, so really low maintenance, simple stuff. And then of course you're mounted up with some hydraulic Pro Max brakes. Now these brakes are flat mounted to the frame with 160 millimeter rotors and feature a 2-piston hydraulic caliper, which is both going to be self-adjusting as the pad wears, but provide quite a bit more dexterity and feel compared to traditional brake, along with much better all conditions braking capabilities. And when it comes to positioning on the Specialized Sirrus, that's really where the magic is going to come in for that do-it-all capability. So as you can see, if we kind of get a look flat on the bike, you'll see that the handlebar itself is about as tall as a standard position for the saddle. The reach of the bike is relatively short and comfortable, so we'd call that a tall stack, a relatively short reach, but your seat tube angle is somewhere between steep like a road bike and slack that you might find on a cruiser, which is going to give you a nice comfortable pedaling position. It'll also give you space enough that you can get your feet onto the ground, compared to, say, a real performance-oriented bike where it's so steep that you really can't touch the ground on the bike. So a nice mixture of the two. So if you're doing some low-speed stuff with the family, or even if you're trying to get out there and get your sweat on, should mix those two together in a really meaningful and helpful way. Of course, with all of that, the frame is going to be made out of aluminum, so rust-free, nice alloy frame. You've got a triplicate mount down here, which allows you to put a water bottle cage on, or even a little spot for a, multi-tool, something like that. You've got seat tube water bottle mounts on the bike. And then, of course, you'll have mounts to be able to run a rack on the back. So if you wanted to put your gear on the back, maybe your work bag, a child seat, you can do that. Something I do like they've added to this model is right here, this cafe lock mount. It allows for a lock that can mount just under the seat stays and clamp around the wheels. So if you're just running in for a quick grocery, just stopping by the end of the trail, you can do that, lock it up, and it prevents somebody from rolling away with your bike. Certainly doesn't keep them from taking it, but you can pair that up with a traditional lock and have security that that rear wheel isn't going to go missing if you leave the bike at the train station. Well, now that we've taken a look at the features and designs of this bike, I think it's time we find out what it weighs. And the actual weight of the Specialized Sirrus X is going to come in and weigh 27.04 pounds. Thanks so much for joining me to check out the 2025 Specialized Sirrus X 2.0. Go ahead and let me know what you think about this bike. Where does it fall in for value for you at a $775 price tag? And then, of course, check out the channel to see more videos like this. Check out as well.